if what's happening in Gaza right now is a massacre, then who's responsible?
We are simply against apartheid, genocide, ethnic cleansing, whoever is perpetrating it and whoever is being a victim of it.
As of 2 days ago, 25,000 Palestinians were killed.
Listen, there were 2 million Germans killed in that conflict. Are you saying that that means that the Germans were right and the Brits were wrong based on head count?
There's just no winners in war. Hey fam, welcome and welcome back to One and Done. Today we're going to be jumping into this video with Dr. Phil. Now Dr. Phil's going to be interviewing Mosab Yousef. He's also known as the Green Prince. Born son of a Hamas leader, Mosab eventually ended up working for the Israeli intelligence agency, known as Shin Bet. Now in this video, Dr. Phil's going to be discussing the current conflict between Israel and Palestine. And they're going to try and establish who is responsible for the current war. Mosab confronts a couple of Palestinian supporters, and we also hear from a Jewish student. Now, if you want to help a brother out, help me get to that 1,000 sub club, don't forget to hit the like, smash the subscribe, ring the notification bell, and share this video far and wide. We're also going to be checking on the latest developments from Iran and Israel, and a young Palestinian supporter protester gets arrested in the US for death threats. Without delay, let's roll that tape.
As an American, I grow increasingly appalled at the anti-Semitism permeating so much of our country, especially by so many students at our elite universities, which have become left liberal woke hotbeds, fostering intellectual rot rather than critical thinking. Harvard and MIT and others receive hundreds of millions of dollars in foreign funding, including from China. Who do you answer to?
Yeah, Dr. Phil is absolutely spitting facts there. You can't go onto these campuses without the leftoids blowing their top, blowing their nana. And it's no secret these institutions are indoctrinating young people. Now, eventually these people grow up, but the ideology stays with them. The ideology seems to be Marxism and communism. Teaches self-loathing, identity politics, and tribalism. Now, the best way to get to the best ideas is to have those ideas out in the open, discussed in open debates. But you have these lefties screaming and yelling. That tells me that their debates and their arguments have no merit, because if they did, they would encourage open debate. Instead, we have things like hate speech, safe spaces. These all go against open and free speech.
Hannah is a Jewish student at Southern Methodist University near Dallas who says the level of anti-Semitism at her school is nothing like she has ever seen. I want to hear your experience in just a moment. We've been talking about something here. What do you have to say about what these two are saying?
You know, honestly, I see actually that she's sincere in what she's perceiving, what they are perceiving. And this is why the reality is very complicated. And the question, do we see things for what they are? Because she mentioned so many massacres. Now the question, how do they originate? You know, if what's happening in Gaza right now is a massacre, then who's responsible for this massacre? And how many times they have done it? Because this is what, the 5th war in Gaza. Every time Hamas used Gazans as human shields and they achieved their goals, to make the world condemn Israel and to gain power and wealth, money after every war. So it worked for them the first war, then it worked the second, the third war. And this time they thought they could double down by taking more hostages and by causing a lot more death, thinking that this is going to give them more legitimacy. This is their game. I invite all the pro-Palestine people, you know, to actually see things for what they are. If Hamas think for a moment that the West, at least, does not support them, their lifespan would be a lot shorter. Those are the true enemies of the Palestinian children. And I speak on behalf of the Palestinian children because I am one of them and I lived the pain of the Palestinian children. So don't think for a moment that it does not break my heart to see all that. But now I cannot be emotional about the death of the children. I can only be angry against the cause that led to the death of those children.
That's right. You have to assess this by looking at the cause. Now, there may not have been full peace and everyone may not have been on the same page, but there was some peace. There wasn't full-blown war. Now, Israel has one of the strongest militaries in the region. And you've got to ask the question, what was Hamas trying to achieve by provoking the bear, by poking the bear? Now, I guess we have the answer. Once again, it doesn't really matter what side you're on. They're both losers in this war.
Within the context of this conversation and given your upbringing and your identity and who you're related to, it would make sense that your perspective would be related to Hamas. Hamas, however, is not the end-all be-all of Palestinian militant groups or resistance. In fact, Gaza is only a portion of Palestine. And in fact, centering Hamas in this movement is detrimental to both me and you. We are simply against apartheid, genocide, ethnic cleansing, whoever is perpetrating it and whoever is being a victim of it. So when this conversation gets misconstrued, it's very frustrating because then we also have to preemptively condemn anti-Semitism, and we are vehemently against anti-Semitism. We know that all forms of hatred exist within the same plane of white supremacy and power structures. We believe that liberation for us means liberation for all. So to be pitted against each other, as we have in a lot of this discourse, is very frustrating and also misrepresentative of exactly what we're about.
I don't think liberation for one means liberation for all. Throughout the history of time, man has been at war with each other, with the neighbors, with each other, and there doesn't seem to be a realistic end goal in this conflict. The Hamas attacks have caused Israel to retaliate, and the Palestinian people are paying the price. Now, apparently they do have 70% support in Palestine. They were democratically elected 12 years or so ago. And according to the Western media, they have been using civilians as shields.
Well, since you're getting to say your point of view, how do you keep saying it's misrepresented? The fact that I don't agree with it and you say apartheid, I don't agree with that.
Why don't you agree with facts?
I do agree with facts. I don't agree with your spin on reality.
So how?
And I'm curious, you say freedom for all.
I do.
And that there's no anti-Semitism among your heart and what you say, and I look you in the eye and I actually believe that. But I don't think that's what you experience on campus all the time from everybody involved, is it?
I have had people who have come up to me and told me that Israel does not have a right to exist as a country, that it is a colonial entity, which I don't agree with. Jews had nowhere else to go, especially after the Holocaust. And I think referring to the land as a colonial state denies Jews that history to the land and denies Jews the right to live there.
Now, like I've said, basically all people, all lands have history. It gets taken, it gets won back, it gets taken again. I don't think that'll ever change, but I don't think wars are the answer. I don't think attacking civilians are the answer. Israel are the big bear. You can't continually poke the bear and expect to come off scot-free. And I think you'll win a lot more support. Let's use Japan as an example, a fantastic example. After they bombed Pearl Harbor, the Americans came and blew Hiroshima to bits. Now, the Japanese could have spent all their living days trying to get back at the Americans. They could have had suicide bombers, they could have had all of this sort of stuff to try and get back at the Americans, to try and hurt them. But instead what they did was they decided to beat the enemy at their game. They become one of the strongest commercial superpowers in the world. They built one of the greatest economies. And they did that through education, and eventually they prospered.
Also joining this conversation is Joseph. He's a student at the University of Texas in Austin who says he decided to support Palestine when the U.S. government backed Israel in the conflict. Joseph, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me on.
Now, you're concerned that Israel is targeting civilians.
Yes.
You are aware that the IDF made 20,000 calls, dropped 1.5 million leaflets, and sent 4.4 million texts and 6 million voicemails warning Palestinians that they were getting ready to bomb that. That's a very unusual tactic in war, is to tell everybody what you're getting ready to do. but yet they did that. How is that targeting civilians when they warn everybody with 20 million messages, we're getting ready to bomb this area. If you're a civilian, get out.
That's true. That's something Israel didn't have to do. Now, you just got to wonder, is Hamas using them as human shields? Are they hiding behind them under hospitals, under schools? Now, the Palestinians, they do have quite a bit of support worldwide. I think if they wanted everybody's support, they would turn over the hostages. That would be killing the Israelis with kindness. I think that would give them a far better position for negotiation. Now, I could be wrong. This is just my opinion. I'm no war expert.
How are these people who don't have food, water, medical supplies getting these messages or these leaflets whenever the infrastructure to get the leaflets and the messages to them is broken?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because a leaflet is pretty hard to not get when they fly over and drop those leaflets. You don't need much of an infrastructure for that. And they also have provided something that enemies never do, which is food and water and medical supplies and support, which are all stolen by Hamas, who Palestine has elected as their leadership, but they are all living in Qatar with a billionaire lifestyle rather than being in Palestine. But yet, where are they getting all of that money? They're getting all that money because they're stealing all of the aid that is coming to the Palestinian people.
You see, Dr. Phil, they are being stolen, but they're not being stolen, they're being withheld.
They're being stolen, they're not being stolen, but they're being withheld. I think this is one of the things we see common in war, whether you look at the Ukraine-Russian war, I guess any war in history. They are a great money laundering opportunity and exercise. You've literally got these warlords living like kings while they're turning everyone else into peasants.
You know, buzzwords are hard to understand because, you know, a lot of people, it's not in their common vocabulary and they can sometimes misconstrue them. But what you can't construe or misconstrue are numbers. And that being that as of 2 days ago, 25,000 Palestinians were killed.
Listen, there were 2 million Germans killed in that conflict. Are you saying that that means that the Germans were right and the Brits were wrong based on head count?
Oh, definitely not.
Well, then how does that,
because
how do you use that as a logic that there are more people killed in Gaza than in Israel?
Because you're equating Palestinians to Hamas.
I think it's terrible if anybody is killed on either side.
Look, it's unfortunate, but Hamas are representing Palestine. And I got no dog in this fight. I'm not backing Israel. I'm not backing Palestine. I'm backing a resolution. I honestly believe that this wouldn't have happened under Donald Trump. This is happening because people in power want this to happen. It's a little more complex than what they're telling us on the surface. There are power grabs, people are making money, and everyone is suffering.
You guys are trying to say that we are calling for the eradication of the Jewish people because we're Muslim or because that is in our charter and in our belief, and misconstruing our holy book and saying that we're calling for the death of Jews when we have not once ever said that, and we have openly stated that a liberated free Palestine means the safety of the Jewish people as well. That is inaccurate, and that is trying to mislabel and misrepresent the Palestinian movement.
That is what Hamas has made very clear. From the river to the sea.
No, from the river to the sea means you have the Jordanian River, the Mediterranean Sea, the land in between is free. Everyone in between is free. I am not going to allow you guys to try and use Hamas's words and say that's my words.
I'm not saying those are your
But
words.
no,
I'm
that's
saying
what
that
Hamas
Palestine
is.
has elected Hamas as their leader.
Yeah, look, that's just a fact. They have elected Hamas as their leader. Hamas is representing them. And if they don't want that representation, they have to find some way to get rid of them. But apparently they have 70% support.
But see, in the same breath, we're saying that we do not want the Palestinian cause to be associated or to begin and end with Hamas, because Hamas is a creation of Israel, and we know it to be a militant group that's unsustainable.
That's
and has
false.
No, it's true.
That's your narrative.
Israeli
That's your
officials have
narrative.
literally said, you know what, you
That's
can look it
false.
up after.
That's false. You cannot convince someone who was born in the Hamas leadership.
It's objectively true. They literally said it themselves.
You can convince
That's
everyone
okay.
else. I am
Okay.
not buying this, and I'm not
So
buying
we're-
Europe from the river to the sea.
So we're trying
from
to
the river to the sea is a genocide call against Israel. So please don't sugarcoat it.
So there we have it. There is definitely a divide there. But all over the world, there are all of these Palestinian protests. Now, some of them have definitely overstepped the mark and have broken the law. Now, I believe in peaceful protests, but you cannot threaten people's lives and break break laws. Completely understand that emotions run extremely high when it's your people. I think you also have to understand, though, that if you live in the USA, you are privileged that you have the opportunity to protest, because in many of these other countries, you would not be able to protest peacefully. Now, I think these people that overstep the mark should be arrested and prosecuted. So many have overstepped the mark, just like this young lady, and authorities had no choice but to act.
Rob, things have escalated to new levels with both sides of the issue condemning the behavior of this Bakersfield woman.
For weeks, city council meetings have been filled with tension as pro-Palestinian protesters urge city council members to pass a ceasefire resolution for the Israel-Hamas war. But Wednesday, it reached a boiling point.
And I hope one day somebody brings the guillotine and kills all of you motherfuckers.
That was a threat, what you said at the end, and so the officers are going to escort you out and take care of that.
After those words, 28-year-old Riddhi Patel was escorted out of the meeting and arrested by police. Councilman and Vice Mayor Andre Gonzalez says things have gone too far.
To have that type of a threat in that type of public setting is completely inappropriate, unproductive, and it's deeply concerning.
Last month, the city increased security measures at meetings, leaving many questioning the timing, including Patel.
You guys want to criminalize us with metal detectors? We'll see you at your house. We'll murder you.
Gonzalez says her threats prove the measures are needed now more than ever.
Personally, I think it's warranted. The city can't function, City Hall and City Council cannot function during a public council meeting if we're continuously being disrupted.
Patel was arrested on 8 felony counts of threatening with intent to terrorize and bail set at $1 million. Gonzalez says threats will not make the council move towards a resolution.
Sit at the table like adults and exchange ideas and go back and forth and really try to figure out how we can find a path together. But it's not making real threats, violent threats to elected officials, to decision makers. That is not the way to influence others. Nobody on the city council will be intimidated to action.
So Riddhi Patel, she just went too far. She had a brain snap. Now, obviously, she's at fault for that behavior, but you've also got to look at the authorities and say, you've allowed this behavior as well because you've let other people speak with this type of language and threaten like this. That almost gives the green light for people to do this. And I have a fear that we are going to see far worse than some language. With all of the people that have crossed the border in the last 3 years, there's absolute heightened risk of attack, of a terrorist attack. They don't know who's coming across the border. Now, this young lady had some words to get off her chest, obviously very emotional. Now, imagine how emotional and committed these people that come from these countries that see the United States as the devil, how committed they would be to their cause. So finally some action, but is it a little too late? Now, overnight, Iran has launched missiles and sent drones to Israel.
The Iranian attack on Israel was a pretty extensive affair. It was extensive in geographical terms as well as in the range of weapons, 331 missiles and drones that were used. Geographically, it was designed to stretch Israeli defenses. So some of these missiles and drones came from Iran itself. Some of them came from Iraq. Some of them came from Syria. Others came from the southern tip of the Red Sea, from the Houthis, all the way to Israel. And some of them, of course, came across the border from Hezbollah in Lebanon. So this gave the Israelis 180 degrees to worry about in terms of their defenses and, of course, Israel's allies as well. They were very successful, but the ones that really bothered them were the ballistic missiles. And the Iranians launched, we believe, 110 ballistic missiles, of which 103 were intercepted. These are some of those that are recorded by the Iranians as taking off. We don't quite know what they are, but they are probably Khorram Shah missiles or the Shahab-3 missiles, more likely, because they've got the long range. Most of them were intercepted outside Israeli territory. However, some missiles and drones obviously got quite a long way. We also have some footage of Temple Mount in Jerusalem, the most holy place for three great religions, and not far above Temple Mount. At quite low altitudes, you can see that some sort of air battle was taking place. The Iron Dome defense system that Israel runs was having to work pretty hard right above Temple Mount. So it was probably a closer thing than appears from the straight statistics. However, the Iranians did achieve success in the Nevatim air base. And the Nevatim air base is in the Negev desert in southern Israel. And Nevatim, although these 7 ballistic missiles had got through, they didn't do much damage. It's a very big air base. But symbolically, this is really important because it was from Nevatim that the F-35s of Israel took off 2 weeks ago to bomb the Iranian consulate as part of the embassy in Damascus. And that's what set off this current round of escalation. So the Iranians will feel that although they were 99% unsuccessful numerically in what they threw at Israel, the 7 missiles that got through hit the base from which they had been hit themselves. So in a sense, honours are even. The United States are saying to Israel, look, take the win and move on. Don't worry about it. Just leave it here. The rest of the world is saying to Israel, leave it. Take the victory from last night and move on. But Netanyahu is very unlikely to do that. Firstly, because this is the first time in history that Iran has successfully targeted Israeli territory itself. And that is an affront to Israel's security policy. And secondly, Netanyahu never believes in letting anybody else have the last military word. The Israeli War Cabinet seems to be briefing out the idea that they will respond within 48 hours, and I'm sure they will. So we won't have long to wait.
Wow, this is just going from bad to worse, isn't it? So time to quickly wrap this up. Now, I'm going to give Dr. Phil props because he has been attacking these really controversial issues head on. He now owns his own network, Merit Media, and he's on a mission to deliver facts that other people can unpack and make their decisions on. Now, he does seem to be a little more opinionated than what he was in his previous shows. Now, just like Donald Trump, we just want all the death and destruction to stop. No more lives. Now it looks like things have been escalated with these recent attacks by Israel and Iran. And unfortunately, I cannot see it de-escalating. It's only going to get worse. Let's cross our fingers. But that's it from me, folks. If you'd like to, drop your comments and your thoughts in the comment section. I'll jump in there and respond as I normally do. If you want to help a brother out, help me get to that 1,000 sub club. Don't forget to hit the like, smash the subscribe, ring the notification bell, and I'll catch you in the next video.